Good morning, everyone. This is Bremster, and today I am bringing you another one of my own puzzles. This is a modified version of my Psycho Killer rule set, and I've come up with this because the Psycho Killer rule set is ridiculously hard to find constraints for, and I was playing around with a variation of the rule set and coming up with some interesting puzzles, but I was coming up with ones that were hard, and I wanted to come up with a puzzle that was more of an introductory puzzle to this new rule set, which I am calling Hunter Cages. I figure if you're going to have something which is a little bit more, it describes the cages, but it's also, I thought it would be an interesting companion for the psycho killers. These would be the things that are hunting the psycho killers. But it also describes what the cages do quite well, I think. So I've been playing around with this for a few weeks, and this is the puzzle I've come up with as an introduction for this new rule set. I have run this puzzle by a couple of people. I have posted it to the CTC testing channel, and a few people have solved it. Sotek, as always, has been very generous and did some pre-solving, and in my first versions found the ridiculously broken things that I'd put into the puzzle. John has also solved this puzzle and provided me some excellent feedback with some things that he found that I didn't, which was good. I had no problem with that. It didn't break the puzzle, so I'm just going to let it go as it stands. So the I'll describe this in a minute. I do wish to thank you all for watching. I do wish to, I keep being told, if you do like my videos, please like them. If you want to see more of them, I will continue to try and post some. When I do any video like this, particularly if it's got killer cages or there's going to be math involved, I will be using a sheet off to the side to speed up my calculation time, even though I set this puzzle. I don't remember the exact numbers that go where, so I will be, rather than just me staring off into the distance, to show you the logic of the puzzle rather than me struggling with math, I will be using a calculator. And I suppose now I'll just show you the rules. So normal Sudoku rules apply. There are cages in the grid, and in any cage, numbers may not repeat. The black cages that we see in the grid are normal killer cages. So when you have a killer cage, the numbers placed in these cages must sum to the value given in the top left corner of the cage. Needless to say, for these brown cages, and brown was chosen after I got some feedback from my testers that the original color was problematic. This would not be true. You cannot have 3 digits between 1 and 9 that add to 777. The way these 777, the way these work is, if you've seen my Psycho Killer rule set, this will be a little bit familiar. The way this works is the digits that you place into these boxes will point to a location in the grid based on 2 systems. First of all, if I was to put a 4 into this box, into this cell, each box in the grid has a number, just reading left to right, top to bottom. So this is box 1, box 2, box 3, box 4, box 5, box 6, box 7, box 8, box 9. When you put a number into a hunter cage, and if I say psycho killer cage, it's because I've been saying that for months. These are hunter cages. If I put a 4 into a hunter cage, this will point to the box that the number is and the cell in the same position in that box. So if I put a 4 here, this is now pointing at this cell. If I was to put a 6 here, then these two digits will be pointing at that cell and that cell, because this is pointing at the same position in box 6. And what the number in the corner is telling us is these two must point, these 2 digits must point to a 5 and a 7. So there must be in these two cells a 5 and a 7. Now, if this was an 8, then it would be this cell and this cell must be a 5 and a 7. And they could be in either order. So this could be a 5 and this could be a 7, or this could be a 7, this could be a 5. But what it's telling us is what those must point to. Similarly, what the digits go into here will point to a 2 and a 3. What goes in here will point to two 2s. Now, one rule I have in Hunter cages, though it is not relevant in this puzzle, is if you were to have a four-cell box, or 4-cell cage with only two numbers in it, then those two numbers must be pointed to, but the other two, but you could point to anything with the other two cells. So all you're doing is restricting two of the cells, but you do not know which two. It doesn't mean that all of them must point to those two numbers. If you had a situation where you had to have all of them pointing to the numbers, you would have duplicate numbers like you do here or here. But anyway, that's not relevant for this puzzle. This is an introduction to the puzzle. I hope that rules explanation made sense. You will see more of it as I go through the video. Here's hoping I can do this. I haven't actually looked at this puzzle myself in about 4 days. So here's hoping we can work through it. Let's see how we go. So one of the things that was pointed out to me by my testers, because this box was actually added moderately late in, or not late, but later in after I'd done the break-in, is if you add 12 and 16 together, you get 28. 45 minus 28 is 17. The only way to make up 17 is to put an 8 and a 9 into these two cells. When you put an 8 and a 9 into these two cells, sorry about this, then you immediately know that 8 and 9 must be in those two positions in box 8 or 9. So you must have 8 and 9 locked into those 4 cells in this row. When you look at a 14 cage, a 14 cage in 4 cannot have a 9 in it, because that would mean the other 3 cells would have to add to 5, and that doesn't work. So you can take the 9 out of those, which means the 8 must appear there, the 9 must appear there, and when you have an 8 in a 14 cage, there is a 4-cell 14 cage, there is only one way to make it up, and this becomes 1, 2, 3, 8, and you can take the 8 out of those. So you can immediately get that. That wasn't the first thing I expected to be gotten in this puzzle, but that's actually the easiest thing to see in this puzzle. The first thing I expected people to investigate was actually column 1. So this 777 cage, if you think about it, then you have a situation where, because all of these must appear in the left-hand columns, and you can't have more than 1 7 in each column, then one of these must be a 1, 4, 7, one must be a 2, 5, 8, and one must be a 3, 6, 9. Now, the first thing we want to think about is this 1, 4, 7. So we know one of these must be 1, 4, 7. We don't know which. This isn't a correct center mark. I'm just using this as an example. If we were to put a 4 in here, it wouldn't be pointing to a 4. It wouldn't be pointing to a 7. It would, because this is box 4, it would be pointing to a 4, but it needs to point to a 7. So we can take 4 out of there, because a 4 in there would be self-referential and not pointing to a 7. If we were to put a 7 into one of these, then it would need to point to a 7 in box 7 in the same position. So if we made, say, for example, that cell a 7, then it would need to point to this cell, which would need to be a 7. And we would end up with 2 7s in the column, which would not work. So we can never put a 7 into there either. So what we end up with is the situation where we must have a 1 in that, in this 777, because we cannot point to a 4 with it and we cannot point to a 7 with it. And therefore there must be a 7 up here in this 12 cage. We also cannot have a 1 in this 12 cage. So we've got a 3-cell 12 cage, which normally has a whole heap of options. I think there's like 7 or 8 options for a 3-cell 12 cage. But all of a sudden we've forced a 7 into it, which reduces it to 2 options, 147 or 237, but we've taken a 1 out of it. So all of a sudden, this has to be a 237. And that's a forced cage just using the hunter cage logic. Now, this 16 cage is forced because of the restriction on everything. We know this has to be the 8-9. We can't use 237. Once you take 237 out of the possibilities of a 16 cage, there's only one option. That's how I expected to get the 8-9 forced, but of course the math was easier. So this becomes 1, 4, 5, and 6, and there is your 16 cage. And that's when I expected people to start looking down here. It was doable in either way. That's perfectly fine. I have no problem when people find shortcuts or other ways of solving my puzzles. So we've got this 1, 2, 3, 8, and we know that there must be an 8 here. So this 22 cage, we could have done this before we did this logic, of course. This 22 cage now cannot have an 8 in it. So when you've got a 3-cell 22 cage without an 8, this must be 6, 7, and 9. These 9s mean that there cannot be a 9 in here. Now, what was the next trick? That's actually a good question. What was the next trick? That's right. I think it's this 15 cage. Because 15 in 3 has a lot of options, but in here, no, I see what it is. If we look down here, we can't use 8 and we can't use 6, 7, 9. So what we've got down here is we can use 1, we can use 2, we can use 3, we can use 4, we can use 5. We can't use 6, 7, 8, or 9. So what we have in here is a 1, 2, 3, 4 of 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now this might be an 8, or it might complete the quintuple. But we've already got 4 of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So in this 15 cage, we cannot use more than 1 of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we can't use 159, because if we use 159, then we would only have 2, 3, and 4 to fill those 4 cells. So any option for 15 that uses more than 1 of 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, we can eliminate. 159 goes away, 249 goes away, 258 goes away, 348 goes away, 357 goes away, 456 goes away. This leaves us with 168 and 267, forcing a 6 into the 15 cage. So that 6 forces a 6 into there. I am trying to remember. It's been a while. So if this was 168, I think that's a problem, because if this is 168, then we haven't in this column yet put 7 or 9, and this would have to be both 7 or 9, because there's no 7 or 9 in there, and there's no 7 or 9 in there, and we would have to put 7 and 9 into both of those, in both of 7 and 9 in there. 168, and there's no 7 or 9 anywhere. So we have to make this 267. That takes 2 out of all of those. This becomes a 1-3. So there's no 1 or 3 in there. That does become the 8. There is no 1, 3, 8 in there. That becomes the 2. We can take 2 out of all of those. This becomes a 1, 3, 4, 5. This 1, 3 is looking down here, and 4, 5 comes out of there. And we lock all of that in. We've got 1, 3, 2, 6, 7, 4, 5. The 9 absolutely drops into the last slot in this column, and this becomes fixed. This 9 cage, I think, is now probably restricted. So 9 can be 8, 1, but it can't be. It can be 2, 7, but it can't be. It can be 4, 5, I believe. Have I missed one? 1, 8, 2, 7, can't be 3, 6. It must be 4, 5. Because it can't be 3, 6 because of the 3 down here or the 6 in here. Okay. So, and we're starting to get some pressure. Now, if we look at these, this does mean, and we need to keep this in mind, that we need to put 2s in those, pardon me, into those cells. So there'll either be a 2 there and a 2 there, or a 2 there and a 2 there. But I'm not seeing why that's not possible at this point. These are restricted, and I might put them in because we're down to 4 options. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These are 6, 7, 8, 9. Of course, we cannot put 9 there, so that becomes a 9. So that's actually more restricted. This is a triple, which is 2, 4, and 5. And this is a triple, which is 1, 3, and 8. And all of a sudden, we've got some more information in these hunter cages, which I don't know if it will help us. Now, this 9 needs to points to this cage, or this cell, and it needs to either be a 2 or a 3, and it cannot be a 2. So that becomes a 3, that becomes a 1. So now we've got the 3, and wherever this is, it needs to point to a 2. So if it's a 1, it can point to a 2. If it's an 8, there's almost no information, so it could point to a 2. But if it's a 3, it becomes self-referential and does not point to a 2. So this has to be a 1 or an 8. Forcing the 3 into the top up here. Maybe this hunter cage. So these need to point to 6 and 9. The problem is none of these boxes are particularly restricted yet. So that might not be it. Maybe this 10 cage. So if this is a 2, this is an 8. If it's a 4, it's a 6. This cannot be a 5 because you cannot put 2 5s in. So this is a 6, 8. Now, this being a 6, 8 means this, if it was a 5, would have to point to a 2. So this being a 5 would make that a 2, and this cannot be a 2. So this must be the 4, this must be the 5, this being a 5 makes that a 2, and that being a 4 makes that a 2. That being a 2 takes 2 out of there, that being a 2 makes that a 4 and makes that a 6, that becomes a 5, that becomes a 2. And this 2, 2 cage with the 4, 5 in it resolves all of this. Now we've got a 5 in this 6, 9 cage, so we know this must be a 6 or a 9, but we don't know which yet. Yes, we do. That 6 makes that a 9, so the 5 is pointing to a 9, so this needs to point to a 6. That could be a 6, that could be a 6, and if it was a 6, it would point to itself. So all of that so far is fine. This can't be a 6 anymore. This 11 cage maybe? Let me look at the options for 11 in 3. Now I can't use a 2, so anything that's got a 2 in it I can take out. So there must be a 1 in this 11 cage now. It's 137 or 146. That can't use a 6, so it is 137. So that is now fixed. I'm not seeing any further elimination in that. I should look at this, because if we look at it, this must point to sevens. Now we know the sevens in this column needed to be with the 1. We now know the 7 in this column needs to be with the 9, but those 9s are saying the 9 must be at the bottom. So that must be the 7, that must be the 6, that must be the 9, and that takes the 7 out of there because the 1 is now at the top. Now this must point to a 7, but I can still point 7 into any of those, I believe. Looks like it. So this could still be 2. Oh no, it can't be 5. So this is 1, 2, or 8 because 7 is forced into the middle. So this is 1, 2, or 8. I can't use 2 because 2 is forced into there. So this is 1 or 8. And that's the 2 in this box eliminating 2 out of there. So that means 7 must be in one of those 2 cells. And that's again using the hunter cage in a different way. It's using the fact that 2 cannot be in there to force 7 into there rather than the other way around. 7, 7, 7 must go in with one of those 3, but I don't know which yet. These 3 cells are known to be 4, 5, and 8. That's not a 4. This is a known triple because I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is not 6, this is not 5, this is not 4. Excuse me again. I feel I should be looking at this 16 cage. So 16 in 4. There's a lot of options for 16 in 4. Like a lot, but I think there's some pressure. So 4, 5, and 6, does that mean this can no longer be 7? Because if this was 7, that would have to be 6, and it can't be. So this can no longer be 7, but it can be 8. Okay, let's look at this 16 cage. So most of the options have a 1 in it. So can I eliminate 2 is the question. So 2 only has, there's got to be a better one. I vaguely remember there being a better way of doing this. This cage is done. 1, 8 is those. 5, that cell is done. That cell's not. That cell is done. This must point to a 2, either there or there. These are pointing to a 5 or a 7. I'm not remembering. Okay, so let's see if I can eliminate the... Well, if there's a 1, it's got to go there. Is there any options I can completely remove from this? So anything with a 7 or a 9 in it can go. So let's just remove all of those. So that gets me down to 4 options. 1, 2, 5, 8. 1 would be there. 2. So 1, 5, 2, 8. Well, 8 can't go there. pardon me. 1 would go there, 3 would go there, 4, 8, 4 would go there, 8 would go there. Yep, I'm not seeing any problems here. 6. What am I missing? Okay, this is not 8. 9 is in... Actually, 9 is in this 5, 7. Because 9 can't be there, 9 can't be there, 9 can't be there. So 9 is in this 5, 7. So I need to grab a not. That's right. So one of these two cells needs to point to a 5 or a 7. So that becomes the 9 because only one of those cells is 5 or a 7. And that's a 5. So this cell needs to point to a 7. That does force that to be the 9. How am I doing on 9s? 9 must be in one of those two. So this cell must point to a 7. So it can't be a 1, can't be a 2, can't be a 3, could be a 4, could be a 5, can't be a 6, could be a, can't be a 7 because 7 can't be there, can't be an 8, can't be a 9. So this is either 4 or 5, putting 7 in one of those two. This gives me a 4-5 pair in the row, which takes 4-5 out of those and takes 1-6 out of those. So if that's a 1-6 pair, that's not a 1. While I wanted this to be an introductory to Hunter, I didn't want it to be a ridiculously easy puzzle. And I'm kind of glad for that because, oh my lord. 4 in this row must be in one of those two. I don't remember it being this hard, but that's okay. I am missing something, I'm sure. So the 9 is pointing to the 3, so this has to point to a 2. There or there. This is pointing to a 7 there or there. Oh, these are resolved and have been for a very, very long time. That's a 9, that's an 8. That 9 makes that a 9, and that's because this must point to the 8 or the 9, this must point to the 8 or the 9. I'm not sure if that's going to give me anything. It puts 8 into one of those two. I'm sorry everyone, that was a case of feline interruptus. Now, I'm trying to remember where we were up to. Now, by my highlighting, okay, I think we'd just put an 8 in there because of that 8 and that 8 and that 1-8 pair. So 1-6 pair looking over there, I can take a 6 out of there. Something with this 16 cage, I'm sure. So 2 can't go there. So 2 has to go in here. So 2 is in one of those two cells. So that puts a lot more pressure on the 16 cage, I think. So because I can only put 1 in here, if it was to be 1, 2, I can't use 1, 2, 5, 8 anymore, so that's a dead option. 1, 3, 3 can only go there. So if it was 1, 3, 4, 8, then these top 3 cells, so this would be 4, 8, 9, so these would be 2, 5, and 6. So that'd be 5. These would be 2 and 6. I was hoping that would give me more. I'm sure there's some pressure here. What's the pressure I put on this? I did not make this tricky. Maybe I should take it back. This is not an introductory puzzle. I'm failing at killer or something, I'm sure. 1, 4, 5, 6. So 1, 5, 6, 4. I can't do 1, 4, 5, 6 because the 1 would have to go here, the 5 would have to go here, this would be 4, 6, and that would break. So that doesn't work. So that leaves me with 1, 3, 4, 8, which would be 1, 3, 4, 8, or 2, 3, 5, 6, which would be 2, 3. So either way, that's a 3, 5, 6. So this is a 4, 6 pair. This is a 3 either way. Okay, and I've got a 4, 6 pair either way. Okay, so that's a bit more pressure than I thought. I'm doing this again. Hay fever season in Melbourne. I'm sorry, everyone. That puts 3, 3, which puts 3 into one of those two. Now, this 4, 6 pair means that these are 2, 7, and 8. So we've got 2, 7, 8. I can't put 8 there. That can't be 2, so that must be 2. Wasn't there something looking at that? Was it this? No. Oh. Neither of my testers said that this was this hard, so this is just me failing, I'm sure. So what are these? So 1 can't be 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's a 3, 7 at the top. So that has to be the 1. And that's a 3, 7 because of that, which makes that the 7, that the 8. That's not the 7. That's because of the 3s and the 7 being pushed in. Yeah, okay. So that is possibly going to resolve stuff because we did have to find... There was something putting pressure from one of these cages. Was it this one? So either that or that is a 7. Both of those are still true. This is looking at a 2 either here or here. Both still possible. This is looking at a 6 either here or here. Both still possible. Wow. These are looking at 7s. The 7 in box 8 we now know is there. So this becomes the 1. This becomes the 7. This becomes the 7. That might have been the trick. Here's hoping. So that being a 7 means that that's the 7. There is no 7 in either of those. So this is 2, 3, or 8 because that's all that's left in that row. That's a 5. So surely that's going to fix this cage. If it's got a 5, it's not 1, 3, 4, 8, it's 2, 3, 5, 6. So there's no 8 in it. So this is 2, 2, 3, 5, 6. So this is not the 2. Which one looked at the 2? Well, let's look at this cage first. 1 must be up here. 1, 2, 3. That's a 1, 4 pair. So this becomes an 8. This is a 6. This is a 4. This is a 5. So this could still go either way. So 6 could either be here or here. I remember doing that. That's fine. So this 9 is pointing to 3. This must point at a 2. This is no longer a 2. So this must be a 1. This must be a 2. This must be a 3. This must be an 8. This must be a 3. And this is starting to come together. There's no 3 here anymore. That's actually a 2 because there's an 8 there as well. There's no 8 in either of those. So that's a 5. That's a 4. That's an 8. There is no 8 there. So this is a 1 or a 4, I think. So up the top here, we're actually missing 4. This must be a 1 because this column, I actually know. Yeah, this column is missing 4, 5, and 8. So this must be a 1. This must be a 4. This must be a 1. That's not an 8, so we've got a 4, 5 pair. So this is a 2, 6. So that's a 6. That's a 2. That's a 6. This is an 8 because this is now a 4, 5. This column is missing a 3. This 4, 5 will get resolved, I'm sure, by that. So this is 9 is looking at a 5. So this must look at a 7. But we're still not sure which of those is the 7. This 5 is looking at a 9. Yeah, this could still go either way. This is resolved. This 1 is pointing at a 2, so that is now resolved. The 9 is looking at a 5, so that is resolved. This is looking at a 7, so that is resolved. This is looking at a 7, so that is resolved. This is looking at a 7, so that is resolved. These two are both resolved because 8 and 9 are looking at 8 and 9. So 1, 3, 7 and 8. So the only place in this row that an 8 can go, because I can't put an 8 there, there, or there. So that's the 8, that's the 6, that's the 7. So this 5 is looking at a 9. This 6 is self-referential. So I need to put 1, 3, 7 in there. This is 1, 3, 4, 7, and that's not 1. Oh, man, I thought this had just fallen apart at this point. I don't think it's a bad puzzle still. I just think that it's... No, I was taking 1 out of there. So there's 1 in one of those two. 1, 3, 4, 7. What's the 2? 1, 2, 3, 4. There's a 5. Wait. There's no 1 in either of those. So is that actually a 3, 4, 7? Yeah, so this is a 5, 6. Which is remarkably unresolved. Okay, so the thing that's not resolved here, they could still both be 7. This was not this tricky. 3, 7 makes that 4. That resolves it. That's not 4. So this can no longer be 7. So that becomes 5. That becomes 7. That becomes 3. That becomes 1. That becomes 3. That becomes 1. That becomes 7. That becomes 3. That becomes 7. That becomes 3. So I haven't done a very good job of selling my own puzzle here, I feel. But I'm still going to release this video because I did want to showcase what? Oh, I hadn't put the 4 at the top. I did want to showcase the way that the hunter cages worked and release a video describing that. And, you know, I'm only human. I do struggle with these puzzles. I don't think the hunter elements in this were particularly challenging, but maybe I'm wrong. This is definitely a 3 out of 5 difficulty puzzle. And yeah, okay, I've learned something, that this puzzle is actually harder than I thought. So when I do release this puzzle, I will release it at a higher difficulty. I hope you found the introduction to the Hunter Cages video interesting. And, you know, setters, you know, we try and do clever things, but we are not geniuses, as much as some streamers and solving channels tend to call us that and say that we do genius things. A lot of the time it's just a lot of trial and error, and a lot more error than trial sometimes, or it feels that way. So yeah, hopefully you found that video interesting in a different way. We struggle sometimes. But that's the solve path for Bounty, the first of my my hunter cage puzzles, and I hope you look forward to seeing more of them in future. Thank you for watching.